Okay, Jeff, how do we unlock resistance and lift barriers to Safewards?
How do you unlock resistance and lift barriers? Well, I think that the first thing to say about resistance to Safewards is that it shouldn't come as a surprise. If you're a kind of leader or ward manager or just an enthusiastic staff member, you come to Safewards, you find it on the web, and you turn up with your staff team and you show it to them, and their initial response is not whoopee-doo, let's crack on with this, but hang on. You should expect that. You should expect some kind of not cynicism, but certainly a skepticism about this. Why? Because there's been loads of stuff happening on inpatient units, and we covered that in when we talked about implementation. There's been loads of stuff going on. So resistance shouldn't be a surprise. You should expect it. We got resistance. We got resistance in the pilot. We got resistance in the trial. We're hearing about resistance in the implementation. It's part and parcel of any development on inpatient units. So don't be surprised. Don't let it surprise you. Expect it. Start planning now for the resistance that's bound to come your way. I think the second thing is be sympathetic. This is not a bad bunch of people. This is a staff group who are
We have somebody walking behind you. She's going to feature in our video, so here you go.
Yeah, so be sympathetic. Just like that lady. Find a workaround. Allow people the time and the opportunity to express their resistance. Allow them the time and the opportunity to come to this in their own time. But I think then you do start to have to plan about how you're going to work with it. And I think the nice thing about Safewards is if you think about it in terms of the whole totality of it, you've got 10 interventions there. So you're going to get different responses to the different interventions. So you present it as a whole thing, people go one way or another. But then you kind of say, look, there's 10 aspects, if you like, of implementing Safewards. And if people have enthusiasm about specific ones, then go with the least resistance. It's good to get yourself started, pluck the resistance, you can come back to it later. So start to plan for it, go with your least resistance. Then within that, if you still get resistance, then you've got to kind of work with it, understand it. I think some of the interventions will have more resistance than others. There's a couple maybe we should talk about as having a specific response, it seems, but we'll come to that in a minute. I think finally, though, your expectation is that you've got resistance, you're going to need to work into that. But often resistance comes because you might tell people something, but they're hearing something different. So I think the first thing is to not instantly go for the resistance, but to go for the knowledge. So for example, one of the areas that we have a lot of resistance is know each other, which is the icebreaker between staff and patients with some neutral kind of information to allow people to have better conversations with each other and just to kind of break down that barrier of staff-patient kind of power differential that is there. So, and I think staff hear that and they go, oh my God, I'm going to have to tell patients all sorts of stuff. And it's not at all about that. So I think the first thing is, like, before you kind of instantly kick in with the resistance, go and watch the information video. It kind of explains it very well. And I think what the information video also says is, this isn't just for staff, it's for patients as well. So it's the whole community just kind of getting to know each other a little bit more. So the actual instruction video for Know Each Other is in fact very good. And it's questionable to me when I hear this, just how many people have actually taken the time to absorb it in the whole sense. So you've got this kind of people hearing what they want to hear rather than what the thing really is. And I think if people look at that and they're kind of reassured, that's great. If they're still resistive, I've watched the video and everything else, but I'm still really uncomfortable, for example, with giving people my information, then I think you have to start to unpack it all the time, keeping the expectation that this intervention is achievable and will be carried out at the forefront. So I don't think you kind of go, okay, we'll let you off, this resistance is making you too uncomfortable. I do think we have to confront staff with the realities of that resistance. And to take Know Each Other as an example, if I am saying I refuse to tell my patients anything neutral about me, so for example that I'm Irish, which to be honest with you they can probably work out pretty well themselves, if I'm refusing even at that basic level, then it does bring into question just how open I am to forming therapeutic relationships with them. Now that's a hard question, so you need to be very, very careful about that, but it's a fair question. And it's one that we should be asking people, because my impression of people is that they would be uncomfortable with that reality, and they probably need help to kind of come out of that and back into some kind of trusting relationship with their patients. We put stuff on the website worth people looking at it in a lot more depth, but the expectation is still there. So we've gone from increasing people's knowledge base, that will deal with some resistance, to helping people to kind of understand what the resistance is working for them, perhaps trying to unpack it. Then the expectation is there. All the time, of course, they're hopefully seeing other people on the ward doing this, being comfortable with it, patients responding to it. So the actual action that they'll see hopefully will again start to reduce and get that resistance down. But there's one aspect I think that we need to be very aware of, and that is what I call sabotage. And sabotage, has to be kind of confronted straight away, sensitively. And what I mean by sabotage is somebody, for example, refusing to put the folder out on the ward, or somebody, actively removing their know each other, which has been, from the folder. And you need to kind of get people to say, this is, again, sensitively, again, privately, to say, no, this is unacceptable. You might be uncomfortable with this, but you haven't got the right to stop it happening for other people. So while people are working through their own resistance, we cannot let them sabotage. Another example, would be something like you're due to put the discharge tree up and suddenly it goes missing. You need to kind of stamp down and say, this is not all right. The comfort box, if you come in one day and suddenly stuff's gone, it's not been booked out and things are missing, you need to point out to people, that might not be sabotage, but you do need to kind of, in a way, put some kind of governance around the actual matter. You need to give it some standing in terms of there is, we need to look after these interventions as well. So I think you go from helping people to work through it. You need to be sensitive and stamp down on things you perceive as actually damaging Safewards. People say, well, would you go to kind of disciplining? Personally, no. I mean, I can't envisage a position where you get down to that. People would need to actively be harming patients, and I can't see that through any of the kind of stuff with Safewards that even their resistance that they'd be doing that. So I would keep it constantly sympathetic, go with the positive, and the important thing in that is reward the people who aren't being resistant. And I don't mean punish the people who are. I mean, you've got to be focusing on the positive with this all the time. And your expectation has to be that all your staff, when they kind of give themselves up to Safewards, when they actually become involved with it, will actually find this is what they wanted to do. This is what they came into nursing for. Hopefully, for people who are perhaps extremely resistant, they'll come to a position that they'll realise that, in a way, Safewards has a chance to rescue them and get them back to something that they'll enjoy coming to work. They'll remember why they came into nursing, perhaps get in touch with positive relationships they've had in the past with people. And I think, in a funny kind of way, overcoming resistance with somebody could be one of the most helpful things you do to them, provided you're sensitive, provided you're not brutal, and provided you are, at all times, in a way, displaying the Safewards motif yourself in the way that you're managing it. So, that might unlock things and undo your barriers. And I hope it does.